Let's start with some facts. More than 8 million tons of plastic are dumped into the oceans every year. 1.3 million plastic bags are used globally every single minute. The US alone uses more than 500 million straws every single day. And by 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. For all this, we are responsible. You, me, all of us. As we were exploring ways to bring awareness to this global environmental crisis, Novo Amor reached out to us for a new video. Inspired by Novo Amor's beautiful song Birthplace, we wrote the idea for the video. A symbolic story about a man who arrives on a perfect Earth, who encounters his nemesis, our neglect of nature in the form of ocean trash. At the heart of our idea, we imagined a life-size whale, made of waste, referring to the story of Jonah and the whale, in which Jonah is swallowed by the whale and in its belly repents and cries out to God in prayer. There have been many reports of animals swallowing and dying of large amounts of plastic, including whales. Although we come from a visual effects background, we wanted our whale to be real, to be authentic. So the challenge that we brought upon ourselves was to build a life-size whale made of trash and make it swim in the ocean. We based our design on the humpback whale, one of our ocean's most magical creatures that can reach a length of up to 16 meters and a weight of 36 tons. We brought the design of our whale to a small village in the beautiful jungles of Bali, on the slopes of Mount Agung. Here we collaborated with the local villagers on what would become a community project. About 25 men added their craftsmanship of sculpting bamboo to bring the whale to life. But it was also here, against the overwhelming beauty of the jungle, that we found the first traces of the antagonist in our story. It took many hours of many days to create the skeleton of the whale. The whale moved locations because it grew out of its building site, and it found a new home in the local village hall, where it was assembled. The activities in the village hall went on per usual, like practicing Balinese music. We dressed the whale with real trash. The truck driver who delivered our trash from the dump told us about a project in the area where school kids would pick trash in exchange for books and pencils. We visited them, gave them our support, and used their trash in our design. We needed lots of black and white plastic bags, plastic bottles, and recognizable items, things that you and I use in our everyday life. By the time the whale design was finished, the crew had become a great team of new friends and was ready for the next challenge. Our next stop was Amet, a popular dive village in the northeast of Bali. We set up the whale right between the tourists. No matter how many meetings you plan, nobody ever did it before, so everyone was guessing and trying to figure out their game. The question was, how would we move a 30-meter wheel on the water? The dive team tested the power of 2 underwater scooters that we wanted to use to pull the wheel. And the art team tested parts of the wheel in the water to see how it would behave and if the plastic held on. Nothing came off. One by one, the wheel segments were taken into the ocean. The divers brought the segments down to a depth of 7 meters where the wheel was assembled. A freediver swam through the wheel to explore its safety. And we installed 2 divers inside to paddle the whale's fins. With everything set, we brought in our camera. We filmed with the red scarlet at 100 frames per second. And then there was Michael Woerd, the hero of our film.
Are you successful in freediving?
I like to think so. I mean, it depends how you define success. For me, I like competitive freediving. I like the challenge of diving deep, and last year I was ranked I was top 5 I was number 5 in the world at diving down with fins. So that was my most successful year to date.
What's the deepest you've gone?
The deepest dive I've done is 108 meters in competition.
On one breath?
Yeah.
The wheel was unanchored, made buoyant, and taking on its first swim. During that swim, the whale was taken to a deeper part of the ocean where it suddenly started to plunge. An underwater current pulled it down a steep slope where it landed at 25 meters depth. Luckily, we were able to bring it back up by removing the weights. But the divers weren't the only ones who faced the challenge.
It was challenging because it's not the kind of freediving that I normally do. Normally freediving is all about relaxation, and you're wearing the right equipment. So you're wearing a mask, and you have fins on, and you're wearing wetsuits so you don't get cold. And obviously in this project we had none of that. So it was diving with no mask and or nose clip or anything. So the water's going up the nose into the sinuses, and wearing wet clothes, jeans and a t-shirt. So all of that was quite challenging.
Because Mike couldn't wear a mask, he was practically blind underwater. Salt water was constantly stinging his eyes. In the footage we see the whale in great detail. Mike just saw a big blur and often didn't know whether the whale was coming towards him or was getting away from him. So together we had to figure out the workflow and find a rhythm. Another challenge added was communication. Obviously this was no regular film set where we could ask the actor or cinematographer to look up or go slower. Although our plastic waste was very controlled, we noticed some pieces of plastic floating in the water. Unfortunately, these plastics were already covered with algae and were brought in by the current from who knows where. We asked our dive crew about the situation of ocean trash and what they had encountered in the water.
I've seen plastic bags, cans, plastic bottles, diapers.
A bottle, straw, lot of straw.
All the food containers, forks, knives.
There's not a stretch of beach where you won't find plastics and rubbish generally, all on the beach.
For the scene where Mike descends through the trash, we set up a big fishing net to keep the waste in control. We released only a small amount of trash and positioned divers at the ocean floor that collected anything that fell down. The last thing that we wanted was to make the trash problem worse, so we kept these scenes small and very controllable. At the end of this part of our shoot, the whale was taken out of the water, where it was undone of its plastics and nets. It also meant that it was time to say goodbye to our new friends.
You're gonna cook the whale tonight.
The whale is currently being reconstructed for its final resting place in the jungle, where it will be on display for the public. The last stop on our adventure were the beautiful islands of Komodo. Komodo is a host to some of the most stunning reefs and wildlife in the world, and we wanted to film the opening of the video here, to make a contrast and show the ocean in its most beautiful, untouched way. Komodo has clear waters, but much rougher conditions, including much stronger currents. This added a new challenge, as Mike often wasn't able to position himself in one place, so we would reposition him in the water. Or when the current was too strong, we just decided to drift with it. Around the many small islands of Komodo, the currents would suddenly change direction and increase in strength. The situation sometimes got downright dangerous. As soon as each dive was over, Mike would get out of his wet clothes and warm up in the sun to be ready again for the next dive. In total, we were underwater for about 35 hours, and Mike did over 250 free dives to capture each scene for the video. And then there was the wildlife, which you cannot plan. We spent several dives simply waiting for something to show up. Sometimes we got lucky, and sometimes we just got cold. But when the wildlife did show up, it was pure magic. When you encounter nature in all its beauty and abundance, and you swim with a manta ray 4 meters in size, or come eye to eye with a turtle, it makes you wonder, how did we let it happen?
Yeah, it's which is one of the things that is actually so distressing about the situation, is no matter where you go, and I travel around the world free diving, so I'll be going to the Bahamas in a few weeks. Last year I was in Bahamas and I was in Roatan, Honduras, and everywhere you go, beaches have plastic on them. Like, there's just nowhere where you won't find the evidence of plastic waste on beaches.
So, where do we go from here? How can we solve such a complex issue?
Menurut saya pribadi, sebisanya dirubah untuk kemasan makanan ataupun produksi yang memang bahannya dari plastik. Itu solusi pemerintah maupun pengusaha. Yang jelas masyarakat tidak akan memakai pembungkus ataupun sebagai alat untuk membawa sesuatu.
ゴミを出さないっていう、ね、ゴミを海に投棄しない、っていうゴミを減らしていくっていうことをやっていかないともうエンドレスだよね、ずっとやり続けないといけないし、
もう死ぬまでやらないといけないよ。
If you want to find out what you can do to help, visit www.novoamor.co.uk/birthplace for more information. Thank you for watching.